The latest Pompey news, updates every day from the Pompey Sound news desk.
Rich Hughes is talking about the signing of Franco UMEH, who we signed in the summer but hasn't been fit enough to play yet.
We really like Franco. He has been on the bench in the Premier League, and we watched him play a lot for the under-21s. This was an opportunity which came up. Ultimately, the alternative scenario is we don't sign him in the summer, he gets around Palace's team, he does well, and we can't get him in January. So we took an educated guess to mitigate the injury. It wasn't a straightforward process to sign him. He was very well regarded at Palace, quite liked by Glasner and training with the first team a lot. But it's an exciting one for us to have as part of the group and to be able to build on. Possibly we may not have been able to sign him but for the injury, but it's one of the sliding doors moments of football which you never really know what pans out. It has been great watching him in training in the last fortnight or so, but we're not going to rush him. We want to build up that resistance to him, make sure he's ready to go when he's back in the group. We just need to build up that training load with him. Franco is a player we have high hopes for. We just have to get him out on the pitch and then, hopefully, everyone will see some of the traits which me and John saw in abundance when we went to watch him last year.
One suspects, does one not, that Rich Hughes, in quiet corners, has been taking a little bit of stick for the state that Pompey are in at the moment in the table, and apparently on the pitch as well, and possibly in training too, we'll never know, for the fact that some of the signings during the summer haven't really come off. And the point he's making there is quite a universal one. Whenever you sign anybody, you are taking an element of a risk. You go to see them, you study the videos, you talk to people who know them, you maybe talk to people who have played with them, and you make your judgment, you make your call. You've got a call. You know, you've got to lay your cards out and find out whether you were right or wrong. With UMEH, it does seem as though he is a tremendous prospect. Obviously, they're not rushing him back. That is a good sign, because if they were rushing him back, it would be because red flags are starting to fly at Fratton Park. And we really don't think they are yet, in spite of one or two fans getting the jitters. So UMEH, an exciting prospect, clearly. Rich Hughes is very clear that he's a very, very impressive fellow in training. Now we want to see him on the pitch. We want to see him doing some stuff, because for us at Pompey Sound, the place where we've been lacking through the season is not left back, which it clearly is at the moment. That was one of our most sound shirts, the number 3 shirt. No, it was the wide right shirt. We never really managed, did we, to replace dear old Abu Kamara. But who knows? Maybe UMEH's the man.
Teo Singer first made a splash back in August when he scored on his senior debut for the Blues against Reading in the Carabao Cup. At just 17, his performance earned him high praise from John Messinho. Since then, the second-year scholar has been on fire, banging in 9 goals in 14 games during an impressive loan spell with Moneyfields, helping them climb to 4th in the Isthmian South Central Division. Now, the talented striker's hard work has been officially recognised by the League Football Education (LFE), which oversees the apprenticeship for 16 to 18-year-old players at Football League clubs. Singer was named as one of 11 players in the LFE's latest edition of the 11, an award handed out twice a year to highlight outstanding efforts both on and off the pitch. The highly rated youngster finds himself in the company of players from clubs like Blackpool, Norwich, Bristol City and Peterborough. In their announcement, the LFE said, "Olutayo is said to work exceptionally hard both on and off the pitch, consistently demonstrating a level of maturity well beyond his years. He sets the standard for model behaviour across the academy and has quickly become a role model for younger players, leading by example through his attitude, professionalism, and daily habits." Academically, Olutayo has excelled, completing his EPA endpoint assessment with a distinction and remaining firmly on track to achieve. His commitment to his studies reflects the same discipline and drive he shows on the pitch. On the pitch, Olutayo has adapted to men's football admirably while on loan at non-league club Moneyfields, showcasing his physicality, composure, and willingness to learn in a demanding environment. This follows the impressive achievement of scoring on his senior debut in the Carabao Cup, a moment that highlighted both his potential and his readiness for the next step in his development. The award doesn't just look at performances on the pitch, it also takes into account a player's work in the classroom and any involvement in community or charity projects. Singer, who was already named Pompey's Academy Player of the Season last year, came off the bench against Reading in August to make his debut. He capped a memorable night by heading home a cross from Adrian Sajecic in the 93rd minute. Weeks later, he was sent on an initial month-long loan to Moneyfields, where, true to form, he scored on his debut in a 4-4 draw at Binfield. He's kept his prolific form going for the non-leaguers, scoring in each of his last 3 matches, most recently grabbing the only goal in Saturday's 1-0 win over Southall. His attitude is brilliant, he wants to be here, he wants to work hard. Moneyfield's boss Callum Glenn praised Singer's impact at the John Jenkins Stadium. He said, "Teo has done really well, although has surprised me actually. When he joined, I saw him in terms of physique and thought he might be a bit lightweight, but he's really strong and good on the ground, especially when the ball goes down the side of him."
The main event at every football club, men's first team squad, the team and the players and their place in the league, whichever it is, their points total, their prospects, the trials and tribulations of the transfer system, all of those things take the fans' attention almost entirely. But things are slightly different now in 2025 going into 2026 because, first of all, most clubs now keep a very beady eye on the progress of their women's setup. And Pompey are starting to string some results together in what is the equivalent of the Championship, with a view to consolidating their position in the Championship and then perhaps having a tilt for going for the very top level next season or maybe the season after. Of course, where have we heard that game plan being touted? Come back to that in just a second. But the academy are now doing their job. Their results are good, but they are producing promising youngsters, which they would not say is their priority. They would say it was one of their priorities, along with winning things and looking after the youngsters. But one of their priorities, perhaps their priority, is finding talent, nurturing it, and bringing it on to the point where it is, first of all, viable that that youngster could play for the first team or be in the squad, be on the bench. That's handy. But most of all, their price tag starts going up. And we've got several youngsters now who, it's quite possible, are already on the radar of some clubs in League One and certainly League Two. How much money would change hands if those youngsters at the age of 18 became available for transfer? Obviously, how long is a piece of string? But the point is, we are now producing the youngsters. And pretty soon some of the first team players are going to feel the heat, not just from potential purchases by the club, but youngsters coming through. And that, of course, is both stimulating for the players, because competition for places is so important, but it's also a bit of a worry for them because you don't want to lose your place to somebody significantly younger than you. However, that's football, and all that is good news for Pompey. The first team, the plan was to stabilise ourselves in the Championship and then have a tilt at something bigger the following season. I would say to you that may well still be the plan. Time will tell. Two commentators described by the Portsmouth News as EFL experts have been sharing their opinions about Pompey's current circumstance. Ali Maxwell and George Ellick. This is what George has to say.
Worries for Pompey. Bristol City took the lead. A brilliant ball in from Neto Borges on the left-hand side, which Anis Mehmeti sprung a header. A lovely header into the roof of the net. 1-0 to Bristol City there, and then Pompey had quite a few chances in the second half. Knight had 2 headed opportunities, which he really should have done better with. Both good chances where you'd hope they'd go close but were pretty wayward. Colby Bishop had a couple of opportunities. Josh Murphy, still hasn't scored yet this season, went close with a shot outside of the area which whistled past the post with his right foot. For Pompey, it feels like everything is going wrong. They have players back, you would have thought that would have improved them. Maybe there is an element of improvement from their performances at home in particular, but for the most part they are struggling. They are now looking at teams who started the season poorly but are improving, and they need to find a way to improve, because right now they are in a bit of trouble.
And the other journalist, Ali Maxwell, says more or less exactly the same thing, which lots of people have been saying elsewhere all over the place. So it's rather predictable, frankly. Pompey need to do better. They have had some players come back to fitness, but 1 or 2 players who have been fit from the start of the season simply haven't been firing. And that remains a great big mystery. And if he could solve it, if anybody could solve it, John Messina could solve it, and it's got him scratching his head. How do you get the best out of two players whose track record, and I'm thinking here of Swift and Chaplin, whose track record is so good that they ought to be just skating around that park with the ball tied to their bootlaces? But that's not happening. Yang hasn't come good. He started really well. He hasn't come good. He's almost gone backwards. Tottenham will be asking what's going on with our boy. Segacic picked up that injury. Laid him out for, was it 6-8 weeks, something like that. We were without Josh Murphy. These are two of our most exciting players, people who can unlock defences and score goals themselves and obviously provide assists. We were without them for a couple of months. And, of course, then our number one centre-half next to Regan Poole, Shaughnessy, has been out since he just started to limp, really worryingly. What is it now, 8 weeks ago, and it looks as though we won't see him before Christmas. In fact, I think that's more or less confirmed. So we have those injuries. Those are such an important part of the calculation as to why Pompey are struggling a little bit at the moment, that I'm afraid I'm disappointed that these two so-called EFL experts are dwelling on that a little bit more and contenting themselves with sitting on the fence and ruminating about the blooming obvious.